2, 1, roll the footage. Communication is hard, everyone. 80% of the time, I say something to my kids and they just understand something completely different. And don't get me started with all the other people. That's why I asked Joel to come here. I have to become a better communicator. We have to become a better communicator. Joel said yes, he is a Hall of Fame speaker, speaker coach, coaching speakers all over the globe. And in half an hour, we will all be better at communicating. Welcome, Joel.
Well, thank you, Simon, and welcome as you're listening, whatever you're doing today.
Joel, what makes a terrible speaker?
What makes a terrible speaker? Well, that's a great question. And as you're listening, you probably have heard terrible speakers in your life. You've also heard good speakers. Well, let's talk about what makes a good speaker, and then you're going to know what makes a terrible speaker. What makes a great speaker is one word: results. When somebody speaks to you one-on-one or as part of an audience, and you do something, when you take action on something, that's a successful presentation. So if we flip that around, what makes a terrible speaker? A speaker who talks to an audience and nothing happens, because either the ideas aren't relevant, the ideas aren't presented in a way that makes sense to the listener, or what they're asking the listener to do is unrealistic. It could be a great idea, but if the audience or the listener thinks, well, that's probably a great idea, but there's no way I can do it, then it's not an effective presentation. So the short answer is, what makes a terrible speaker? No results.
And if we can improve only one thing, which one thing should we improve?
Oh boy, you're asking some good questions. If you had to improve one thing when you're communicating, and just think when you communicate, you open this podcast by saying, talking to your children, and sometimes they just don't get it. Well, how many times do I have to tell them that? But as an entrepreneur, if you have people on your team, you have your clients and customers, you have prospects to talk to, you're constantly communicating. And whether you do that in front of an audience where there's more than one person, whether you do it on a podcast, an interview, or on a video, you're still communicating to one person, even if there's many. And that's one of the keys to being an effective speaker. Don't talk in plurals, talk in singular. And the name is you. So that's who I'm talking to. You. Maybe you're out jogging or working at the gym and getting into great shape. Maybe you're sitting at your desk. Maybe you're looking at your laptop or phone and watching this in a video format. However you're experiencing this, you still have to communicate to other people. So the most important thing, if I had one thing that would help you be an even better speaker, make it all about your audience. It's not about you. And Simon, I don't want to insult you. We don't know each other well enough, but you're over in Austria and I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. So if you were to tell me your story about your kids, your family, being born in Italy, living in Austria, you know what? No one cares. No one cares about, nobody on this podcast cares about Joel Weldon or you, Simon. What they do care about is, what do you two guys know that can help me be even more effective? So as you're listening to this interview, you should be thinking to yourself, I don't care anything about Joel, but what does this guy know that can help me be an even better communicator? You opened by talking about your children. What does he know that can help me make a better connection with my kids so they understand exactly what I'm saying? And those methods and techniques apply whether you're talking to your children, your spouse, significant other, a prospect, a client that you've had for 30 years. How do you connect with others? And that's why the single most important advice would be, make it all about them. And when you talked about terrible speakers in the beginning, one way to know is, what pronoun do they use the most? And if you look at ordinary speakers, that pronoun, regardless of what country you're in, if you're in Europe, if you're in North America, if you're in Asia, doesn't matter. The most common used word in all of these languages is I.
Mm.
And when you hear an ordinary speaker, they open this way. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this. I can't wait to share my ideas. I've got so many things, Simon, I want to tell your listeners. No one cares that I'm excited. But what if your opening was always about your audience? You're here because you want to be an even better communicator. And you're speaking all the time, whether you're doing it to your children, whether to your employees, virtual or face to face, in front of a group of your clients, potential prospects, on a video, you're communicating all the time. There's no I's in that statement. So here's a great way to open any message that you're giving. If you would open any message with, "You're here because." So just imagine you're a financial advisor. You're talking to people about retirement planning. What the ordinary financial advisor says is, "Retirement is my favorite subject. I love talking to people about it. I've got so many great ideas we're going to share." No one cares. But if the opening was, "You're here because retirement is going to be important to you, either because you're thinking of it right now in a very short time, or maybe you're planning for it in the future. But someday you're going to be leaving your business and you're going to have to support yourself on your savings and your investments. And what if there were some ways that you could plan for your retirement even better?" Well, that's what this is about for you. How you can plan for your environment and live the life that you've dreamed of. So if you replay what I just said, other than that I that I just put in, there was no I's in that. It was all about them. So that would be the most important thing to think of. Make it about your audience, not about you, because no one cares unless what you know can help them. That
and
makes
and
sense?
absolutely, and we are here to learn from you also how we can overcome our nervousness and how to best start any message after one word from our sponsors. What if your business would run well even when you are on vacation? Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale. Get the exact checklists they use to go from stressed to fulfilled using the Strategy Sprints method. Order your copy of Strategy Sprints 12 Ways to Accelerate Growth for an Agile Business on Amazon today. And if you love it, leave us a review. For more information, head over to strategysprints.com. What if I'm too nervous?
Well, think about what nervousness is. Nervousness is self-consciousness. When you're self-conscious, like, how am I coming over? How do I look? How do I sound? Are people going to be interested in what I have to say? Those are the things that cause people to be nervous. But notice they're all self-directed. But what if a speaker, an entrepreneur, a business owner, a parent was so focused on their audience and not on themselves? Then you don't become self-conscious. So I use that example about retirement planning. If a financial advisor would just close their eyes and picture that this audience, how many people they would be there, someday are going to retire, and how valuable this material is going to be for them, and how blessed they're going to be to learn these ideas, that helps get yourself out of the way. And the more you can get yourself out of the way, the less self-conscious you become. The less self-conscious you become, the more relaxed you become. Because Simon, I don't know exactly how old you are, but you have been you since the day you were born. You are really comfortable being you. And that's another great truth about speaking. It's not a performance act, it's a connection act.
Hmm.
It's being yourself. And chatting with you before this and chatting with you on this podcast, you're exactly the same. You didn't put Simon the podcaster on, you just put Simon on. And that's what you need to do when you're speaking. Be yourself. It's the congruent you that has gotten you to be successful. Whatever you're like now, you've achieved the level of success because of who you are. Why would you try to be somebody you're not? And if you're dull, boring, and monotone, that's how you should speak. And then you could get the introduction to set that up for you. So I have a client that we just did this with.
Mhm.
He's dull,
Mhm.
boring, and monotone. He hates to speak, but he's got great wisdom. So in the introduction, it said that Bob is not used to speaking in front of a group. As a matter of fact, I really had to push him out of his comfort zone to come on this podcast for you to hear him. And the reason I did, in spite of the fact that he's dull, boring, and monotone. Matter of fact, if you looked up in the dictionary the word boring, you'd probably see Bob's picture in there. I mean, he's that boring. However, when it comes to knowing about XYZ, there's nobody I've ever met that knows more about XYZ than Bob. So forget about the delivery, concentrate on the ideas, and please help him welcome Boring Bob. Now, if Bob gave a boring presentation, you know what the audience is thinking? Well, he's not that boring. Well, this is really good stuff. So you can get that out of the way. You have an accent. If you came to Scottsdale and talked, because that's not a very distinct accent that's easy to identify, if I was introducing you, I'd put in there, and Simon comes all the way from Austria. Even though he was born in Italy, he speaks 5 different languages. English is not his first language. So you might have to pay a little more attention, and maybe you'll miss some of the words because English is not his first language. So let's please welcome the man all the way from Austria, Simon. Okay. So now we're not thinking about your accent. People will say, well, I can understand everything he said. And you do. You're very understandable. So is that making sense?
Absolutely. And now I am on stage. I'm comfortable. I know I focus on what they came for. How do I open my message? How do I
Well,
start?
I gave you the first 3 words should always be, in my opinion, you're here because.
Hmm.
Then, once you identify, because see, that identifies that the speaker knows who they're talking to. You're here because you're a follower
Mhm.
of Simon. You've listened to these
Mhm.
podcasts. You're an entrepreneur. You want to be even more successful and grow your business. So, in this message, you're going to know how to open and how to end any kind of presentation. You're
Mhm.
going to know how to be even more relaxed. And you're going to have an opportunity to listen to the questions Simon's going to come up with, which would represent the kind of questions you would ask if you were sitting right next to me. And hopefully, when we're finished with this, which should be in 11 minutes and 45 seconds, you should feel even more confident about your ability to connect with any audience and make your ideas even clearer. Okay, so that used 3 words that as you're listening, you could use to open any presentation. Now, the very first words were, you're here because. The next key words, if you were to replay what you just heard, was the word know, K-N-O-W, have, feel. So if the opening, Simon, was, in this time together, you're going to know. What will they know? They'll know how to do XYZ. You'll know how to do ABC. You'll have an insight into this. You'll have an example. What will they know? Okay, then well, I mentioned you have an example. You're going to have a chance to ask questions. You're going to have an opportunity to go to my website. You're going to have an opportunity to talk to me one on one. What will they have? And then feel. Feel is the last word. What are they going to feel as a result of this? If we go back to that retirement planning, well, you're going to feel even more comfortable about the idea of retiring someday because you're going to know the 3 most important things you need to do right now to ensure the life that you've dreamed of in retirement. So
I'm
let's get
loving this.
started with your first idea.
This
Bob.
is beautiful. Whenever we invite to an event or to something, we always try to have three fascinations. So, hey, this is what you'll get from the event. And now I will tell my team, hey, team, I, we can go even much better. We will say, you will know, you will have, and you will feel.
Perfect. You got it. So and good communicators do tell the audience that, and that's what
Mhm.
they will know. So how is that going? They'll have an opportunity
Mhm.
to ask questions. They'll have an
Mhm.
opportunity to review a handout that they'll get, or whatever that
Mhm.
is,
Mhm.
or they'll have an opportunity to talk to their neighbor in a breakout group. That's the have. And then, of course, feelings are so important. How are they going to feel? You're going to feel so excited about your investment of time to be at this social session.
And people, let's pause here. Let's rewind and let's re-listen to what Joel just gave us. Imagine you're writing your next email about whatever you are talking about next week. And it's so easy to forget to describe that feeling. We just say, "Hey, come on, it's this product, this feature, and this thing." Right? And it's more content or more factual. But actually, you will feel more confident, you will feel more at ease, you will, I don't know, sleep better. That makes such a difference. It can be maybe just two words that you change in that email.
Absolutely. So, speaking of emails, here's a good assignment. As you're listening, look at an email you wrote to a prospect or an existing client and look at the first two paragraphs and print out that email and circle how many times you said I, me, or
Mm.
mine. I, me, or mine are the same. And then you, your, and you'll. And you know what you're going to find? If you're like most ordinary speakers, you have a lot more I's than U's. But here's the key: you could write a 10-page email and never say I, me, or mine one time. And think about how it works. Simon, I need to ask some questions about your podcast, and I also need to know about your audience, and I want to know about this. And then I want to make sure that I do a good job. So, um, can you tell me about, all right, all of those are personal. Simon, because you love your podcast and you want to make sure it's going to be a success, who is your audience that you tune into? What are the things that they're most interested in so they'll keep coming back to your podcast? That kind of an opening is completely different than I
Mm.
want, I need, I have to have. Because you know what? No one cares.
No, I love this.
They
No one
want to
cares.
know, how is it going to benefit them? What's in it for them?
Should be your t-shirt. Nobody cares.
It's all about them. And
Absolutely.
but when I say that, and again I'm being facetious but truthful, that when no one cares, follow it with the word unless.
Yes.
No one cares about your personal story unless your story can help them. Unless this product will do what you need to have done to plan for your retirement. So that forces you as a communicator to talk about that benefit to
Mm.
them.
How can we study good communicators? For example, I'm reading great advertising copywriters like Ogilvy or Mr. Sullivan here or Mr. Eugene Swartz because I want to be better at understanding communication, right? Is there anything that people can study to become better? People that we can, uh, watch or listen to.
Sure, YouTube is filled with that. YouTube is the learning channel. That's where people go to learn. It's the second biggest search engine. Google is first, YouTube is second. People go to YouTube to learn something. So there are so many great speakers. TED Talks are a great place to start. Just Google in the highest rated TED Talks in history, the 10 best TED Talks ever given, and watch great speakers.
Hmm.
And you'll see that they're ordinary people, but they have a great message that's going to be relevant to the audience that they're trying to reach. And this is what I do every day is work with entrepreneurs, helping them make their message connect by being themselves, making it all about their audience, and then getting the results that they want. So you can learn, because your first question was, what makes a terrible speaker? You can learn by watching terrible speakers. So why don't you Google in some of the worst talks ever given and see that?
That's a great idea. You know what I do sometimes? I go to my heroes, and but I watch the very first video that they did on YouTube, not a current one, the very first one. And then I go, oh, okay, they also started just as a normal being.
Well, right. Well, I've been doing this 50 years. 50 years ago this month was my first paid speech. And as you said, I've been paid to speak at 3,000 events and also have coached over 10,000 speakers. And, with that kind of background, you see an awful lot. But sometimes the best speakers are not the ones you would think because they're so humorous, they have so much energy, they have passion. No, it's what are they saying that makes a difference? What is
Mm,
moving people to action? So
mhm,
remember that very first question. What makes a great speaker? Results. What makes
mhm,
a terrible speaker? No results. People
mm,
don't do anything.
mm. Sometimes I hear, Simon, I hate speaking because I'm there, I'm performing, but I really don't know if anything landed on the other side. How can I know if anything landed?
Well, what you said is very true, but let me just correct one thing. I'm performing. That's the first mistake people make. They think speaking is it's not a performance. Speaking is not a performance act, it's a connection act. And you connect by being you, by being congruent to who you are. People can tell a phony. And you've met them, whether that's in sales or business or in a dating situation. But when you can connect with somebody because of their integrity and their honesty and being themselves, it makes such a difference
Mm,
to connect. And how do you know? Well, you ask the audience. So one of the things I have done for my entire career, I've had millions of people fill out a critique form on me. Every time I would speak, they would write down what was their best idea,
mhm,
what could have been done to improve this.
mm,
Now they have great things. Talkadot is a great software program. It's free where you can do it on a virtual level, or you could do it at a meeting, give them a QR code. It's a totally anonymous, and you
mhm,
can get feedback. But if you're not asking your audience for feedback, you have no idea
mhm,
how effective you are. And you could see somebody sitting there with their arms folded and think that they're tuning out. Maybe they're just cold
mm,
and they're trying to keep warm, or that's how they like to sit.
mhm.
It's very difficult. I've been in front of all of these audiences. People can fool you. But if you
Do you
get some kind of,
connect to? This is a question that I have many times. If I have 100 people in front of me for an hour, do you connect to all of them? Do you select some of them? Who do you select? The hardest ones to connect to, or the ones that connect automatically to you?
yes, you connect to everybody because you don't know. And you have met people who are just non-responsive. They look like an owl. They just have, they just stare forward. And then afterwards they say, Simon, this was the most exciting, wonderful program I've ever heard. Thank you so much. You changed my life. And you think, what? Well, that's not how I would express gratitude or excitement. So you talk to everybody. You cannot tell who's picking up. Now, if we're going to keep on time, we've got under a minute to go. So I've got 22 words I want to leave your listener with. And then what else do we need to do?
Give us the 22 words.
Are we done then?
You name it. It's your stage.
Okay. Well, if you want to look at what I do, just go to ultimatespeaker.com. That's my website. Or go to talktojoel.com and get on my calendar and we can talk about this if you're serious about being an even better communicator. But if I was to sum up 50 years in 22 words, here it is. Speak to your audience about what they need in an organized way they can follow and get yourself out of the way. Now make it a great day.
Because they don't care. This is beautiful. Joel Weldon, everyone, Hall of Fame speaker, speaking coach, ultimatespeaker.com. And thank you so much, Joel, for sharing your wisdom, your tactics, your practical advice with us. And I made so many notes, and this is so practical. We can really all apply this. So please, people, check out Joel Weldon, ultimatespeaker.com. Thank you, Joe. Please come back soon.
Make it a great day, Simon.
Avoid trying to do thousands of things that doesn't work. We have 274 templates for your business success. Reach your ambitious goals with one-on-one sprint coach. We double your revenue in 90 days.
What if your business would run well even when you are on vacation? Discover how 1,600 business owners have regained their freedom using the Strategy Sprints blueprints. How they enjoy living their dream and watching their business scale. Get the exact checklists they use to go from stressed to fulfilled using the Strategy Sprints method. Order your copy of Strategy Sprints 12 Ways to Accelerate Growth for an Agile Business on Amazon today. And if you love it, leave us a review. For more information, head over to strategysprints.com.